Beautification Commission, we'll start with call to order.
Lucas Richardson.
Here.
Jermaine Sullivan.
Here.
Kathleen Grabowski. Jess Stallings. Mary Kay Bokosh.
Public comment, no public in the audience. Approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of meeting minutes from previous meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Unfinished business. I know this is more so what Kathy was kind of working on, but we got a letter from the senior center about cleaning up the fountain there, and I responded to Sarah Howard, and she said thank you. We'll look into next steps, and so for right now, we're kind of waiting to see if we can help with that at all. But what we did was I contacted the city water department. They went out there, they tested it, turned the water on, and nothing happened.
Nice.
So there's a lot of plumbing and structural work, I think, that has to be done on the fountain before we do anything that our commission could volunteer to do on that project. So, but she said thank you for the efforts on it, and I let her know all the background for that.
Wasn't there more they wanted done at the senior center? Wasn't there a list?
Kathy said that there was a list, but I never got anything other than just the fountain.
Okay, because I was gonna reach out to her and have that as my October project.
Okay.
Senior center to see what they had to do. Okay.
All right. Anything else on senior center? No? All right, mural process. Last meeting, we kind of talked about Jess and Mary, I guess, starting to kind of get together on putting some process for future murals. I know this got brought into city staff meetings a couple times now, about how we can make sure that we can avoid plagiarism, and a process for making the artists come in here and show us what they're gonna do, just like we did with Katie. Just so we have all our checks and balances down from that, and there's some other things that I can send you to that city manager wanted to make sure we included in there.
Okay.
Have you and Mary had a chance yet to kind of talk about that?
I see Mary here, except not the last two meetings, so.
Right.
No.
That's what I figured. Okay.
I also thought we had talked about, though, them just coming in front of us here and as a group, us discussing instead of having a separate commission for that
Yeah.
particular thing. So maybe it's something where we as a group or email back and forth and come up with the checklist of things. And then when they come to present to us, we can go through that checklist so we know right then and there if that's going to work for us or not.
Mm-hmm.
Just
So, so your idea is, like, if we have an idea, just like I was saying, for from like the city manager, send it to you and Mary, and you guys can make that checklist, and then we'll go through it together with whenever the artist comes in. Okay. I think that's a good idea.
Do you think it would be wise for someone from the commission to reach out to communities that have the same governmental structure as ours and the same roughly population to see what they have for policies for murals, such as Ludington or up north towns? I know we've looked at Grand Rapids, but Grand Rapids is so different in size to us and different governmental structure. Do you think there's value in reaching out to these other communities?
I think there could be, yeah. Or even just looking on their websites, like Frankfurt, Ludington,
Sure.
Cadillac, or
And then
something.
maybe just take a look at what they do and see if it meets what we're looking to do and make it possibly a lighter lift. What do you think?
Yes.
I mean, is there a way to, like, we don't really have a art institute near or local, but is there a way to enlist the local high school art class and each class could take like a section or something? Is that a thing? And then we don't have to worry about payment, just supplies.
I mean, that's a possible option. It seems like what we should do is probably nail down what we want our process to be, and then whoever wants to be part of that process, whether it be high schoolers or people visiting family from town, once the process is set, then we can plug in whomever, I
We can
think.
have that on the city website even, like the format or whatever. is
Sure.
needed.
And
Sure.
the process wouldn't be necessarily just for that, the candidate that we have right now, it'd be for everything.
Yes,
Sure.
yep, across the board, same.
Mm-hmm. You want me to, would that help if I help do a little bit of research for the smaller communities for that and send it your way if I find anything?
Yeah, sure, that would be fine.
Anything else on mural process?
What, have we decided on with the one we have down there? Is that something that's going to need to be painted over, or?
So we've talked about that in city staff, and we've discussed with the city attorney about what we have to do, if anything. And we're still getting some information back from the artist, Katie. But from the sounds of it, I don't believe that we have to do anything
Okay.
as of right now. I know there's been discussion, they've never, the people that have brought it up haven't brought it up to, in a city council meeting or into our meetings, so. I know that they've kind of talked about it to like chief and, city manager, but
Yeah,
we're
they-
kind of trying to figure out if there's any consequence to what we've done, and I don't,
If I'm understanding you correctly, what you're waiting for to get a legal opinion by a city attorney before you make a decision on how you're gonna handle the mural? Okay.
So what I ask as just a Manistee resident and a person who saw all the Facebook feedback and stuff on that, is that if that is something that we have to do, I think it's only fair that we give the community an opportunity to go down and enjoy it, take pictures with it one last time. So if that's something we need to do, I would say posting like, listen, this is exactly what's going on, being honest here. You have 2 weeks before it's going to be painted over. So if you want any pictures of it or with it or anything like that, this is your time frame. Just because there was so much positive feedback on that. So many people were so excited. They don't really necessarily care what is painted on there. They just want to see something. They want to see Manistee enriched. So that's my 2 cents on that, whether
That's
it,
a great idea. If it comes to that, letting the public know.
yeah.
yeah, I agree. I think, like you said, all the positive feedback, it, as long as there's not a legal problem with what was painted, I think it would cause a lot more ruckus to paint over
I
a
agree.
mural that was done
Yeah.
by a volunteer.
And I mean, can she do anything to tweak it if it's that close? Like, can she put fall leaves or something in there to make it her own?
Where she lives.
She lives in Seattle.
Can I FaceTime her and drop it?
If you want to go down and edit it, go right ahead. I'm tempted to go put a big smiley face on it or something.
Right.
Well, and the conversations have been, how many different ways can you paint a ship coming through the channel?
Right.
So,
And I mean, I don't know if Eileen wants to, I mean, she could come pose with it. She could stand next to it with her own, and that could promote herself too. We could have her portraits and stuff in different places in Manistee. Like, she could really take this and utilize it, I feel, if she feels like the portrait is that close. So it's a bummer that it's going negative.
Well, yeah, I think what we're just doing, excuse me, just waiting to get a legal opinion, and that'll help inform us how we move forward in the future. And that might help us with our procedure for what we come up with for murals in general, so.
right. If that comes before the next meeting, I'll make sure we send it out to the commission, so that way we know there's action on it before our meeting. All right. Moving on to volunteer recruitment, our volunteer recruiter Kathy's not here, so I don't have anything on that. Do you? Social media posting, I see that we're regularly posting the bulk items and the, and other things and that I'm guessing you're sending up there, which is awesome.
We're still having city residents put things out days early and we're still having some challenges there. I know they've talked about it at city council and what can be done about it. So there's still some of that going on with the holidays and things of that. So just know that the conversation's out there amongst one or two council members. It's a kind of a priority for them. I don't know what the answer is because it seems to happen every time there's a holiday or even when there's not. As far as public education from a police department standpoint, we put letters and tax rolls. Kelly did constantly put stuff on Facebook. I don't know what else we can do from a public notification standpoint. I know city staff is certainly open to any other suggestions, but we do put out quite a bit. In fact, I thought I remember seeing something on the city website regarding the Labor Day holiday and big item pickup. So as far as
I'm pretty sure that was on there.
social media and public messaging, they do quite a bit in the city of Manistee. So unless this group has any other strategies or ideas, I'd be certainly open to them.
I feel like the only time that I like notice it, and it's just because when I'm driving through the neighborhoods or whatnot would be on the weekends, and so it's the Monday zones. So like people will put out their stuff for bulk item pickup that they have trash pickup on Monday. They'll put it out there on Saturday or Sunday because it's easy. They're home. But that's the only. I mean, how do you prevent them from putting it out there a day early or a night early? That's the question, and I don't know if there's really a solution, but I don't know, maybe that could be something that's looked at as if it's a Monday zone, maybe that bulk item gets pushed into a different time, I don't know.
Yeah,
If
so
that's
this
even
is,
feasible.
conversation that's out there. One of the challenges we faced since we went to the big item process, so just want to make you aware of it.
Did we figure out anything pricing wise on
Yeah, I don't,
the pickup?
city manager hasn't really given us anything that we need to recommend right now, but I know that it's not exactly, but I'm sure it was like basically twice the cost of what it is to pay the bulk items right now. I just don't know how that would affect the refuse bill that everybody gets, so.
Right.
Are you talking about this? I missed it, I'm sorry.
Second bulk pickup,
A month, having 2 a month?
yeah.
Or to do like the actual spring cleanup again, like we used
Yeah.
to in lieu of the one a month.
I know that the spring cleanup is a different deal because in order to get an accurate gauge of that, you have to factor staff time, meaning the DPW. I'm sure they can factor that. They probably quantified that when they made a decision to do away with it. But it's been, I don't know how long since, so.
I have a question. Do you know if we pay extra for the one pickup a month? I'm sure that's like an extra cost, wouldn't it be?
I think it is on the.
I don't know, but I can get you an answer about that.
Okay, so my thought is if it continues to be a problem, why don't we just eliminate that and then do the spring cleanup? And then if you are putting garbage out there that's not in your bin or not in a bag like it's supposed to be, then you either get a ticket or a citation, or because obviously you can only educate people so much, and it comes to a point where they just don't care. So I don't know if it would be more cost effective to eliminate the one pickup a month and then go back to the spring cleanup.
Okay, we can get that question answered.
Okay.
The challenge part about the citation is we were doing that 3 years ago. So you would write someone a citation because they're just not going to do it, and by the time they have to pay that citation, it'd be 10 days. They wouldn't pay the citation, the garbage is gone, and you're left, what do you do at that point? You either issue them a state citation to move forward, or you say the problem was solved. And then you take that problem, you times how many residents do that in the city. It just isn't, it wasn't an effective use of officers' time.
Okay.
It was, for lack of a better term, spinning wheels is what
Okay.
it was. But we can get a number for that, hopefully. I can ask Ed Bradford, I would think, have that number to see, does that factor into the decision, or is that something we bring to city council? It could be, we'll see.
Okay.
My concern is, you know, that we, let's just say, that we go back to a spring cleanup, and then we do it, and we find out after the cleanup, we still have residents that are putting stuff out.
Right,
Because they have to be the ones that want to do it. So I'm not saying that would happen, but that would be one of the concerns I have.
I think a concern I would have too is if you get rid of the bulk item pickup, then people are essentially stockpiling all their junk until we have that spring cleanup, you know? So I feel like blight would probably go up, I don't know. Just,
Can't you call anytime for a bulk item pickup?
Yeah,
I mean,
you
I
can
know
get a
it's-
tag.
Yeah, you can get a tag and pay extra.
Yeah.
If you had a bunch of bulk
I didn't know
items in
that.
your house, you could pay extra. I think it's,
Like, it's not much, is it?
no, I don't wanna say public, I don't know what it is, but there's a process already in place for that
Yeah, it's $15 to get a tag
tag.
for a bulk item, so.
Our service provider does a great job with bulk items. That guy does a great job, so, but we'll get that question answered.
yeah, I didn't know that. All right, if there's nothing else on that, upcoming community service day,
September 28th.
28th is,
PM.
okay.
She says.
September
September
28th, 4 p.m.
And then did we come up with like a sheet so that I can order the tools that I need yet? Or do I send a email, or how do I go about getting?
I thought Mary Kay had
Mary
a
Kay.
Sherry
sheet.
does have a sheet.
She's never sent it to me.
The biggest thing is just letting me know what tools you'll need available,
Okay,
because only the police department has access to where the NRBC's items are. And so I do that myself, instead of having officers do it, no. So just let me know there.
okay.
Do you have the template for that, or do you want me to send it to her?
If you can
Okay.
send it to me, yeah. And what for the volunteer email, what specifically is happening where? I mean,
We're gonna clean up that area, so it's like edging and scraping. I don't know, how do you wanna word that?
Is it sidewalks or what?
Yeah, it's down by the church on the corner of Sixth and Davis.
Okay.
There, yep. So we'd need what, the edger, some spades, some bags, rake and shovel, probably.
Wheelbarrow, yard waste bags, probably.
That kind of project, we have a pretty good idea on.
Okay,
Well, we do the edger, weed whacker, blower, all that kind of, our basic stuff, we have a pretty good idea.
perfect, okay.
The biggest thing is if we need to use the power washer, we haven't used that in a while. So, I just need to know ahead of time, to put gas in it and fire it up and probably test it.
Wait until you see this area that she's talking about. I don't know if we're gonna have time to pressure wash.
No, we're not there yet, it's pretty,
Good.
alright.
There's a lot of weeds.
And when we're done, it's Thursday night, we can go to the Elks for burger night, guys.
Okay. Do you wanna have a second date in case it rains?
No.
Take
We
your
could-
chances.
Well, what we can do is we can start looking as that day approaches and announce that maybe a week in advance.
Okay.
That may be a better way for you to look at your schedule.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then maybe if needed for backup, do the first week in October, but I hate to do anything in October because you'll have your project at the end of October.
so wait till we
It's okay.
advance to send out the email.
To announce the rain date.
Oh,
Is that gonna be a problem with,
I can do the volunteer email now. I don't have to
Yeah.
wait till a week in
That's
advance.
that's the only reason I think we've kind of established that as our process is
Yeah.
to put 2 dates on there just in case.
Right.
oh, okay,
Right.
And we put it in that email too.
okay.
Okay.
So we need to call it
What
then.
about-
Based on that logic, we need to establish a backup date today then.
Well, and
Following day, Thursday. is what
Yeah,
you're saying?
which would be October 5th.
Okay.
okay. And somebody, when they responded to the volunteer email, asked if we could ever do these on a weekend. Because she would like to volunteer, but she doesn't get out of work until 5, so it's not, she can never make them by the time she gets home from, I mean,
I'd
just
be
somebody
okay with trying to
responded.
host one on a weekend too. I know that a lot of us are busy, but if I can make the weekend work, then I
Did-
can be the one to show up, you know what I mean?
Do you remember, do we do our first one on the weekend?
was
The
a
first one
Saturday,
was
yes.
on
It
a
was a
Saturday.
Saturday?
yeah.
Okay, yeah. Did get more participation, but I think we tried to do the weekday, cause it seems like most of them are when we can be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we don't have a big group of volunteers yet that are showing up regularly,
I think the thought process, we had a commissioner who wanted to work all day Saturday, and we thought it'd be a more successful path to ask our volunteers not to work 8 hours on a Saturday,
right?
maybe like 4 hours on a Thursday. I think that's what we kind of transitioned that way. In the summertime, a lot of people don't want to give up their Saturdays.
Correct.
And so that was our thought process. And maybe we look at this and say, okay, as the weather cools off, do we think that changes? Do we think we'd be more successful drawing volunteers on a Saturday? That might be a question the commission asks themselves, but.
And it was just one person, so I just wanted to let you guys know.
Right.
Good to know.
I would like to, when we have meetings through the winter time, like really figure out how to get volunteers so we're not doing the projects every time. Like it's the
Mhm.
5 of us, 6 of us every time. So I think we need to look at that a little bit.
Yeah, I
better.
think we went out there, cleaned up the sign a little bit, and then it ended up only being, 4 of us, so we just went and cleaned up a sidewalk on the next block, because we couldn't do much more with just the 4 of us, so. There's 2-foot tall weeds on the highway between 4th and 5th Street, in front of the chiropractor there, we cleaned all those up. But, yeah, no, I agree, I think that was kind of our intention with doing having Kathy as the volunteer recruiter, is try to, keep asking people when you see them if they wanna be on the list, and make sure that they, fill out the waiver and send their contact information to Mary. But we need to improve it, cause right now it's not going anywhere, it seems like.
I think that we still need to do what we talked about, if we don't have a minimum of 5 volunteers, not including us, we don't do the project.
Would help last month.
Well, it would have helped when we did, oh my gosh.
The church?
Yes, the church.
Sure.
Yeah, because actually, part of that we were gonna clean up, but.
Yeah, we had no volunteers.
Time.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess just keep thinking about that, if there's a way that we can do that, maybe, like you said, it's talking about it this winter, or,
And October's our last project, right?
I think that's what we talked about, yep.
So I was thinking about October 19th. If that, I don't know, I don't think anything is,
I mean, I don't think it's a problem that it's not the next day, so,
okay.
I mean.
I was just gonna talk to them like soon to see what they have and let them know that, we need a minimum of 5 volunteers from the
Yeah.
senior center. Okay.
Maybe bring it as like an incentive, like say, hey, we'll come and help out, but you gotta supply this amount of people, and I think that's a good idea.
Are we doing any indoor projects
Mhm.
that we do, or just outside?
Just outside neighborhood stuff.
Public property.
Maybe that's something that, I know Jesse said you work down in that area by 6th Street, right? And do you work at one of the bars down there?
Yeah, at Stu's.
Stu's. Maybe that's something that we could, or you could reach out to some of those businesses, be like, hey, we're gonna have this project up here at the top of the hill, and, maybe eventually, if we get more time, and maybe we'll start working down the hill and into those neighborhoods that no one takes care of their sidewalks.
Right.
So if they have any volunteers or,
Well, Mary Kay talked about too, going to businesses and asking them to like sponsor a cleanup.
that's a good idea.
So, I mean, we can put that list together for next year too, like,
I think that's a great idea. And honestly, I mean, we could go farther on it if they want to donate shirts for people to wear while they're out there working and stuff like that. It's advertisement for them as well.
I just wanna write that down, cause That's a good idea. All right, you said October 19th?
Mm-hmm.
And we won't have an issue on that, cause my first day is no rain on that day.
All right. If we're just doing a sidewalk project, I don't know if we need anything else, like equipment. We probably have everything we need for that one. And I haven't thought of any other things we need to buy. You guys thought of anything? No?
I don't think, I mean, we have like the gloves and the vests and all that stuff already ready,
Mhm.
so that's fine. I can get a case of water for whoever shows up and be good to go.
That's good. Chief, anything for blight remediation that has came up?
Yeah, we're working with the city manager and Tracy Davis to see if we can pursue maybe a grant, neighborhood enhancement grant. I received information on that, as did other folks, and we're getting together a list. The direction that was given to me was a list in Maxwell Town of houses that need exterior remediation. So I've tasked our officers with getting that information. Where we go from here, I think the city has to apply for this, I believe. It's still early on in this whole thing, so we'll see what that, if that goes anywhere, or is a program that we can take advantage of. So that's kind of what we're doing. Yeah.
I'm good.
Is there any existing cases that have came up that maybe our volunteer group could help with cleaning up blight or anything, or is everything's in enforcement right now?
Well, it's not a matter of enforcement, it's a matter of being private property. And, so I think having these types of programs, grant funds, enforcement. I know that we just hired a building official. I haven't, I've been in conversation with the city manager, what exactly that looks like for, enforcement, what that person's role might be. The police department is currently down 3 officers, which is almost 25% of the workforce. So blight enforcement can be challenging at times. With that said, I still think the officers do a pretty good job. Our court process has changed, so we're asking the police to be in court more on the blight cases, which, as you can imagine, absorbs more of their time. So I've asked them to ultra prioritize a case. I've got an officer, and I told him in spring, I said, you need to focus on Davis Street, that neighborhood. We need to have some impact on Davis Street. And I think there will be, depending on some court cases, and when the county, I'm missing the organization's name, Land Bank, excuse me, clear cuts that lot that we turned over to them. It's grown up, and so there's some things that could potentially happen there. But you have it literally is you have to take one bite at a time. Otherwise, it's so. We're trying to work through those processes and those challenges, but I use Davis Street as an example because, as I said, we were tasked with Maxwell Town, and if you focus and ultra prioritize, I think that's the right approach. There's probably at least a dozen houses in the city of Manistee that could be arguably should be tore down, but that's we don't have the staff or the facilities to tackle all of those. So.
I
That's
got
more-
a question about that land bank property. I think I've asked it before, like who's in charge of the maintenance on it? Because, we're reporting like other people, and then this is like grown over.
Yeah, my officer made the same observation. I'm going to email her. The county has it's county property. Same thing if they have a property for auction. They have a person, a staff member to do it, and
Okay.
I suspect they just some attention needs to be drawn to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I've got a question on, I know that we keep talking about this, but the blight procedure, like, what if, because I know we're all about trying to educate people, but the people that just don't care, like they blatantly do not care, because you've got Ramsdale, Maple, 12th Street, they don't care. What if we did something like brought it to the ordinance committee to, instead of the citation or the ticket that they get, they have so much time to clean it up, and then it's like a daily compounded date, like they get a daily rate that they're charged.
I think that's a great thing for this commission to look at in the wintertime for maybe a policy change or ordinance change. I don't know that they don't care. Sometimes some people can't afford it. And so there's a lot of different factors here. I can tell you that our process, it has changed in the last 3 years, how our officers have been asked to enforce this, but well, for example, Davis Street, there's some residences, our officers have worked for years because the owners keep changing, because blighted homes keep selling, and we have to have due process notification. I've given them direction, give them a state ticket and get them in front of the judge. We're not gonna do anything, we're gonna go right now and get a ruling. And usually the ruling we look for is that either you fix issue A, B, and C, or the city fixes issue A, B, and C. The positive thing is that if we get a ruling, it empowers us to fix that. The problem is, that's typically paid for by your taxpayers, so your tax dollars is what we pay for those with, right? So we did a bunch of those in the spring. And then we were told that we overloaded the court docket, and so we were asked to handle it differently. And so those tickets we wrote, we had to reissue tickets and ask for informal hearings in front of the magistrate. And the city attorney has worked with the magistrate to possibly make sure that she has authority to give us rulings that we're looking for, meaning either you fix it or the city fixes it, because a fine is not adequate. If you're telling me that I have to replace my siding for $30,000, I'll take 17 tickets and I still won't come close to paying $40,000. That's the problem. Now, we're not talking about the junk vehicle. We're not talking about the mattress. We're talking about structural blight, which takes up the majority of our officers' time. Because of this here, we ask our police officers to deal with structural blight. And we just had a ruling the other day, so we wrote a citation of asking for a formal hearing. We were told to void that ticket and ask for informal hearing. We got to the informal hearing months down the road, and they didn't show. Now we've been asked to write them a formal hearing so we can go in front of the judge. And all the meantime, we're spinning our wheels, and I'm trying to convey to our officers who do a great job to stay at it, stay with the process. So I think we should absolutely take a look at a number of things, how we can be more effective in this, and what really are some issues. And that's something that I hope this commission will look at, as a volunteer project slow, and we can really dive into policy. And it's not a matter of ordinance necessarily, it's a matter of our policy here and our procedures here. So I think there certainly is work to be done there. And I know it's a little bit of a soapbox moment there, but it's very frustrating because what you're looking at is police officers, their time being eaten up by that. And I'm not saying it's not just cause, but again, we have a lot of other priorities we have to focus on too.
I think it's a ridiculous waste of resources to have you keep doing the same thing over and over and essentially start over because it just keeps getting pushed back, or they don't show up, or you've got to do something different. Is there, I don't have the blight ordinance in front of me, is there a difference between, does it spell out in here structure and just garbage?
Yeah,
Okay.
you have blighted structures.
Okay.
And then you have rubbish. You have a separate junk vehicle ordinance. Now, I will say that we should chew on all these things. I call it the off season, for lack of a better term, wintertime. There's different paths to declare a house a nuisance. One of those paths is bring it in front of city council, and city council can declare a nuisance. Now, our city attorney doesn't like that process, I think, or thinks there's a better process having it done by the judge, and I agree.
Obviously, it's not working.
For due process reasons. So I think we look at everything. I think this commission comes together and has a recommendation for city council how we can do things better in the spring. So I think we should go through everything.
So you say there's a process that would need to be kind of looked at. So where would we find that? Because all I can get is
I think I would recommend have the city attorney come in and explain the processes, and so you can have a good idea of what that looks like. I've got officers who have been trying to get judgments on houses for years. And when it comes to blighted homes, that is better served by a person who works like a Monday through Friday, who can keep for lack of a better term, the pressure on, stay in contact with the company, stay in contact with the owner. Right now, we ask our police officers to do that, so our police officers do that, and they have to coordinate with whatever person the city has for a zoning official and/or building permit official. So we're coordinating with third parties, and then we're coordinating with our city attorney. So it's really cumbersome in that regard, and it really isn't that effective. Now, if you only had a handful of these in the city, okay, but that's not where that's simply, we're not there. We don't have that, and so we're not talking about taking people's homes. We're talking about houses that have sat. The three of you probably can think of a handful of houses as we sit. I know certainly, we're talking about houses that have sat. Nothing's been done with them for years. It takes a substantial amount of money to bring them up to code, and so they have sat.
They sit, yeah.
And so part of it is, if we get a order of judgment saying, okay, you need to fix problem A, which a lot of times for us is you have to demolish it, or the city will demolish it. Finding funding for that, and finding funding that is sustainable. And again, these are all some things we should look at, or at least talk about in our off-season, wintertime. That's my recommendation. The commission can do as they choose. We have other communities that don't allow abandoned buildings in their downtown district. We brought that up 2 years ago. If this commission has appetite for that. So just looking at all these different things, according to our bylaw, strategies, recommendations to city council for their adoption, absolutely. If you want me to crack open we can go through a case-by-case basis, what it looks like, and we can get very specific on some things if it helps this commission understand, but, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you're recommending that we have a meeting that is strictly to talk about the process and the ordinance for anti.
I think you look at it because the bylaws, or not, the mission of this is to come up with programs, policies, and recommend them to city council. Because you guys are gonna dive a lot deeper in this than city council is.
Right.
Say, hey, we did this, A, B, and C, we recommend adopting this, changing this, doing this, and then city council, I don't know if the mayor's sitting here, but they might say yes, yea or nay, I don't know, but that's really a big role of this commission. And so when the volunteer projects stall because of weather, it opens up a great opportunity to have us take a look at some of our internal stuff.
I think that we should have, like, our meetings in November should focus on blight, and then the December, we can bring the recommendations to the December ordinance.
When do they, who is on
It's
that?
not like a regular,
I know who Councilmember Bachman is.
Bachman, Grabowski, myself, Bill.
Okay.
Oh, it's not, okay.
So, and again, you might, we might look at it and say, well, the ordinance is fine, however, the process is not fine, or we might find, no, we like so, if you wanna task me those meetings, I can bring in and again, as a police chief, I never realized I'd be reading the building maintenance code for Manistee, but we're here, so I can bring all the things in that apply to this, so that this group is well informed and say, here's different paths, we've never done this, we've never done this. I mean, we're doing something this year that we've never done with a house on Fifth Street as far as trying to get a circuit court ruling for that house to be a nuisance. But we have things on the books, we've just never done them before. So, whatever I can do as liaison to help educate this group so they can make decisions, provide ordinances. I can bring officers in to talk about the process so you get boots on the ground and some of the challenges they've faced. Absolutely. That's what this whole commission's about.
Be like all blight, because we keep having these same conversations, and I think that the reason we keep having them is because it doesn't really make sense, so.
Well, and we had George come in here too, and I think, he explained the process, and from that meeting, I don't think there was really any action, because we thought that
No,
there was
because
nothing we could do.
It doesn't make sense. They issue a ticket, then they don't. Then they have to void the ticket, then they have to reissue the ticket. Like, it doesn't make sense.
And it sounded like a lot had to do with if the judge wasn't gonna pursue, the case in a certain way, then
Sure.
there's nothing we could do.
And we haven't had any of these cases go in front of the magistrate, so I can't tell you if she has ordered, you fix this or the city fix this, because we voided and then we reissued and then we kind of spun our wheels all summer. So So
Sorry,
I'll-
go ahead.
I'll keep this group updated if we are getting adequate judgments from the magistrate, giving us direction or empowering us to take action.
I can't remember, I know that we talked about it, but I can't remember why it wasn't a thing to put tickets on the tax bill, because we do that with.
The city
grass
attorney
cutting.
advised against it.
For what reason?
I don't recall his reason. He thought, well, maybe back up. I want to be careful here because I'm paraphrasing what he said, so I want to be careful here. My recollection was, the conversation was, if the city has a court order to tear a house down or remedy something, can we take that cost, instead of putting on the lien, because the lien is paid out as it is assessing it on your taxes, much like the noxious weed ordinance is. He didn't think that, he thought there might be legal issues with that, although I know there are communities that do that. So I would lean on him for his legal expertise.
thought that-
And again, I'm paraphrasing what he's saying, so, maybe we can bring him back in here and ask him, but I thought legal issues with it, but maybe it wasn't the best path to accomplish that necessarily, so.
That's what I recall, that it wasn't recommended because he thought that would just result in never being paid.
Well, it would be actually the most successful way to get us paid, and by the city taxpayers recouping their costs, because if you assess it on your taxes, at the end of the year, the county buys up all the city's tax debt, so if you weren't paid that, the city still gets paid those funds, so basically, we're not using taxpayer money to tear houses down with no way to sustain that fund. That's the way I look at it. If the city has to tear your house down, and to recoup their funds, we put a lien against your house, the lien is paid in order that they're filed. So if you have other liens, those get paid out first. The reality is, you're probably never gonna see that money again. And maybe that's the path, maybe that's just the price of doing business moving forward. But we're trying to find a way that this could become more sustainable.
Well, because I think that it would be, because a lot of these homes that are blighted or, have issues are rentals. So if it hits the landlord to where, hey, now on my taxes, they're not homesteaded, it's I got another bill on there because it's.
Yeah, and the ones, and maybe I should be clear, the ones I'm talking about are demolition houses. So those aren't rentals, but you're talking about some that have structures, junk, I think we're talking about two different things here. I'm talking about how we recoup the cost of when we pay to have something fixed.
Right.
I think you're talking about fines and costs, maybe?
Yeah, because.
That's something different.
I mean, if you've got 20 homes that are rentals and those landlords are just like, ugh, the ticket's gonna get dismissed anyway, because usually it does. If they're getting a ticket and it's going on their tax bill, eventually they're gonna say, hey, I gotta clean this up because I'm tired of paying this on my taxes.
Yeah. And to be clear, I think from what I see, we're kind of past, we rarely are issuing ordinance citations now because it's not
What's the
very
point?
successful. Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
What's the point? It gets dismissed, so.
And the problem is that when we aren't asking the right things in court, so when we find someone that has structural blight and, okay, they're found responsible, you have to pay $500, well, that's a drop in the bucket. So again, I think I can gather information for this commission to look at. I could bring an officer who's boots on the ground enforcing it. I would recommend bringing the city attorney in, talking to him, so that you can look at all these processes and have great conversations about what is a better path moving forward, from enforcement, from financially sustainable, from everything. And I would recommend bringing the city building inspector, I believe we're determining it, he or she needs to be part of this conversation as well, bringing everyone that might be touched to give input.
Okay.
So that's my
And bring up
recommendation.
to speed the new building inspector too, right?
What's that?
There's gonna be a new building inspector that just got hired, right? Even they can be brought up to speed in that meeting maybe too. You brought up a point, Jermaine, that I was wondering, so there's a rental process, right, that the city has, but is there even an ordinance for that? Or is it just a process? Because if it does, I wonder if it even says anything about if your rental has blight. Cause I feel like you shouldn't
It
be.
does, but they're
The
not.
mayor tackled this a couple of years ago, and it could be because there's overlap between rental inspections and blight.
Yeah,
And so I think the question was, how are these places being rentally inspected and passing if they've got blight? How does that, doesn't make any sense?
Yeah,
Right.
there's like holes in the walls and people are living there.
And so, again, those are all kind of tied together in some of the things, so.
so there is an ordinance, or there's somewhere that says you can't have?
Yeah, there's a whole checklist that they have that coincides with blight, so, but the rental inspector is not a blight officer, so.
Right.
So we have rental inspection program, and so we have that as a city policy.
I just wonder if that maybe, should we look at that too, do you think?
I mean, I would start with just the blight and,
I mean, down the road, I don't see why, if the rental inspector is not on the same page as our city, I mean, that's an issue. I would say somebody should probably have to go with them blight-wise and say like, this shouldn't pass, this should need to be fixed, that sort of thing.
Well, they have the list, and we have a new company doing it. So, and some of the challenges that has been for our officers is the inconsistency of, we've had 3 different safe-built people in 2 years. And so, once you get up and, the last one we had was amazing. He was great, right? He came to this group and was speaking and had ideas, but he no longer works there, is my understanding. So just understanding who that person is, and as soon as you get off the ground with them, it seems like it's a new person, and then you gotta go back in. So it's, again, back to the analogy of spinning wheels.
Yeah.
Now the building inspector is in-house, so there'll be more consistency with that. So I look forward to that consistency and working hand in hand with our officers on these structures. Because a police officer can't tell you that a house is uninhabitable in court. A licensed contractor needs to do that. We can handle vehicles and mattresses, but our officers are not educated or trained in the building maintenance code, so.
So our building inspector and the rental inspector are not the same person?
They were.
Okay,
We've just brought that building inspecting position back in-house.
I see, okay.
Mark Neeson used to do it years ago, and we contracted that service out, and so he also used to handle blight, so we contracted the service out, had the police officers handle blight. I feel like this was around 2008 somewhere. And, as soon as we can, it seems like the city brings those back in-house because you have more control over them, and, it's just a better process, so.
can I ask you a question? This changed in 2008. Was it this bad before that change?
Was the blighted homes?
Yeah,
No. I was here in '04, and it's not, no.
okay.
You had a lot of people, this is my perspective, you had a lot of homes that were foreclosed on, and people bought them as an up north vacation home, and they sat. And people would let them sit because when they come up here and say, oh my gosh, it costs X amount of $1,000s to fix that, when I bought it for so cheap, they would sit and they'd perpetuate. And for years there wasn't pressure because we were in that zone, who's doing blighted structures now, and okay, let's have the police do it, the blighted structures. The police have always done junk vehicles and things, structures now, and that wasn't a great thing. So these houses have been sitting, and every year they get worse and worse and worse.
But who did the blight enforcement before the police department? Just
The building inspector did the blighted structures because they go hand in hand with building permits and then structural blight. It's the same conversation. And rental inspections, all same conversations. And so when that position was eliminated, the police department's always done the junk vehicles and junk in the yard, those type of ordinances.
so maybe we can look at separating that again, so you're not wasting your time on blighted structures and in court and.
But I don't think it's wasting time. It's a more efficient use of time, probably an effective path. I've had these conversations. We've already had these conversations with management. It's just a matter of kind of iron out who does what type thing. So.
Okay. I meant effective use of time is what I meant to say.
I have a quick question. This is not on the subject necessarily. When somebody puts a complaint or whatever in through that app, who does that go to?
It depends. It would eventually go to the department that it is responsible for taking care of.
I didn't know if it was like just one person going, okay, this is okay, you know what I mean?
I can
And
tell you
then
who
setting it.
handles it for the police department, depending if it is blight or something, the categories we have, it goes to one of our 2 patrol sergeants.
Oh, I see.
And they sign it out, and
Okay.
then they, you know,
And then if it's like a parks problem, then it goes to the parks department.
Okay.
I think it depends on which category you pick when you
Okay.
enter a request.
Is,
one of the things about, sorry, Mayor,
oh,
but
go ahead.
See-Click Fix is if you call a complainant on blight saying my neighbor's house is caving in, like a pothole, it could take, how long would it take to fix a pothole, a week? That's not an easy fix for blight.
Right.
Or the siding is terrible. Well, we've had houses we've been working on for 3 years, so it looks, so I've told them to make sure once we give direction, once we take action, that complaint's closed. Otherwise, there's no way, you have a bunch of open cases on.
Yeah.
So it's not a great tool for that, but it's a great tool for everything else, so we utilize it for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so that'll be like, so, cause I put a request in, next to Stu's, there's that big white building, I think it's apartments now, but it used to be like the meat market back in the day. But the roof on that is coming off, so when it's blowing, it's like on the sidewalk, in Stu's patio, out behind, it's everywhere. So I put that in, but I'm like, man, I don't know how to,
I can tell you, we wrote them a ticket in the spring, and we had to void that ticket, and now we're working on getting an informal ticket.
are there people actually living in there still, like as?
I have to ask the
tenants?
officer, but that's, we've been dealing with that issue for a
Okay.
while now. We're aware of it, and we've
Okay.
been dealing with it. The officer who works that zone knows that.
Right. Well, I told the girls the one night, I'm like, maybe just close the patio. Like, we don't want people out there playing cornhole or anything and debris falling off on them, you know, so I'm like, just throw a sign on the door, close the patio for a night.
Mary, I'm sorry, I think I interrupted you, I apologize.
So I just had a question. There is an ordinance about having like machinery parked in the road and stuff like that, right?
I don't know about machinery, I have to look at that, the parking, I know there's boats and RVs,
Okay.
but if you change it every day, if you move it every day, it doesn't violate the ordinance. So we have people who park trailers on the road, they move it every day, so it doesn't violate the ordinance. Same thing with RVs. So, again, something this group might wanna look at and say, okay, well, this is what's happening. I know there's a residence that parks a machine in front of their house and they move it, they take it away, they use it for work and park it there at night, take it away, and so I don't know that we can, that necessarily violates the city ordinance as it's written.
Okay.
So-
And then if you have vehicles that are towed, like where do they go?
Whichever company tows them. To their yard.
Or to,
It depends on whoever tows them and what reason, you know. If it's I used to know this a little better. So if we have, I don't know, statewide towing, just for a name, they go to statewide's yard, and then we would start the abandoned, maybe they start the abandoned title. There's a lien process on them that happens.
Okay.
The owner is notified, the last registered owner is notified at some point in that process, so.
Okay.
I would tell you for junk vehicles that were on private property, the police department's process was we just tag them, and then if they aren't moved in 7 days, we just go to tow them. I've changed that process, I know it begrudgingly, because, you know, the city attorney and I are of the same opinion that you can't deprive private citizens their private property without more due process than putting a sticker on the car in their backyard. So we've kind of, in order to take the junk vehicle out of your backyard, there needs to be a judge's court order allowing the government, the police department, to come on your property and seize that. That was my opinion. And so that has slowed that down, but it has been consistent with the Constitution and best practices.
Okay.
All these things we've looked at in the last 3 years and worked through quite a bit. All right.
Because otherwise we'll be here all day.
All right, public comment, there's none. Good of the order, we kinda just did that, but
Yeah.
Nothing else?
No.
Anybody else? Chief?
No.
Okay. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.